Thank you very much, Katrina. It's been an interesting week on Newsroom, opening the can of worms here in South Africa on the so-called Dagga debate once again. We started the week with the Dagga Party of South Africa jumping straight into the mix, accusing political parties like the Democratic Alliance and the governing ANC of being too silent or passive on the entire matter, and saying that they represent the greatest prohibition forces with regards to legalizing marijuana in the country. Well, we have invited both the ANC and the DA to respond on the matter. And today, the DA's federal chairperson, Dr. Wilma James, agreed to join us from our Parliament studio in Cape Town to discuss the party's view on the matter. Very good morning to you, Dr. James. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, good morning, and good morning to the listeners.
Dr. James, I wanted to start by getting straight into what was said in discussions earlier this week, that the Dagga Party accused you of being too silent on this matter. What is your response to that, and can you maybe give us your official position on the marijuana debate or the legalization thereof in South Africa?
Well, I certainly will do so. We should separate the whole question of whether marijuana should be decriminalized on the one hand, which is an issue I'll address right now, from the question of the use of marijuana when it comes to medical treatment related to cancer, which is a separate issue altogether. Now, on the question of decriminalizing marijuana, let me say this is what we've learned from the science community. The first is that marijuana is certainly less harmful than other available drugs that are banned. Firstly. Secondly, it is it's less addictive compared to the highly addictive tobacco and alcohol that is legally available, that it cannot lead to a fatal overdose, that there's little evidence that it causes cancer, and its addictive properties, while it's present, those are fairly low, and that there is a myth that the use of marijuana leads to using other more dangerous drugs. But let me say, and this is the real point, that this does not mean that it is not harmful. Firstly, the current strains that are available are potent, and especially if it's taken as food. And secondly, it can lead to serious dependency, and it does interfere in work performance and school performance. And finally, this is the most fundamental point for us, it must be kept out of the hands of minors. So our position is that in those states or states in the US or countries that have decriminalized the use of marijuana, they are confident that they can keep marijuana out of the current strains, in particular, out of the hands of minors. It's really quite important. They're confident they can do that. Yeah. And the reason why they're confident is that they managed to keep alcohol out of the hands of minors. We have no such confidence that we can do the same in South Africa. And because of that, we do not support the decriminalization of marijuana. We do not support that because of the extraordinary harm it will cause to our children. We have no confidence at all that we can keep alcohol out of the hands of minors. We've got a massive alcohol problem in our country. And in fact, in many ways, it's destroying our country and the young lives of South Africans. And because of that, we think that until we get on top of that issue, that's the real issue, not marijuana. It's a question of alcohol. We won't support it.
I want to continue on the note that you're carrying on about minors specifically. Don't you think it's more dangerous than for it to be illegal and then forcing young children to, or not young children, people younger than 18 years of age, to then go to the taxi ranks or in the townships in areas that will be dangerous, and where they're then forced to deal with drug dealers who can introduce them to other drugs? Does it not place our youth more at risk by keeping it a criminal offence?
Well, the fact is that our young people should not be using marijuana, and there should not be an exposure to marijuana. And it should not be easily available, and that those who make it available should be subject to what happens in any normal justice system. And so that there should be restraints placed justice restraints placed on the production and distribution of marijuana, and that should be effectively applied through our policing system. So that's where the focus should be. It should be on making it enforceable and making it clearly a subject of successful judicial pursuit on the one hand, and on the other hand, subject to excellent education, subject to parental authority over their children. We should make sure that it does not get into the hands of our kids. To say that by making it difficult to access it, it will drive it underground, I think is the wrong approach to the question.
Shortly after IFP MP Mario Ambrosini's death, the DA released a statement sending condolences to his family and saying that, I quote, "We will honour his legacy by continuing on this journey." What exactly is this journey that you alluded to at that time, and where is it leading to at the moment?
Well, let me now turn to the real purpose of Mario Ambrosini's medical innovation bill. This is about the use of marijuana and other plant-derived therapies when it comes to dealing with cancer. And let me say that it is very clear, the medical experts tell us this, that the function of marijuana is principally to modulate pain. It has the properties, the chemical properties, that reduces pain. It does so, though, up to a point. There comes a point, like with morphine, where the pain is so overwhelming that even marijuana doesn't help in that respect. No. Now, let me also say that marijuana and other plant-derived therapies can be a useful supplement to the main therapies that we have available at present. And those main therapies are chemotherapy, radiotherapy, to some extent, although it's expensive, gene therapy, and of course there's surgery that's used. So you can use it as a supplement, but it does not prevent cancer. It does not prevent cancer, and it is not the main therapy for dealing with cancer after cancer's taken hold. It's really important to point out it helps with the modulation of pain. Now, we believe that what we should do to that medical innovation bill is ask for it to be completely redrafted so that its purpose becomes the creation of the equivalent of what you have in the US called a dedicated cancer treatment and research center. The Mayo Clinic is one great example, where you create an integrated facility that houses the basic research, it houses the clinical research, and it houses an integrated approach, houses a facility where you have experts that can provide an integrated approach for dealing with cancer, firstly. Secondly, not all cancers, the cancers that are part of South Africa's disease burden. There are certain cancers that are found in the South African population, some are not all. Cancers often, when it comes to heritability, runs within families, and there's certain kinds, strains of cancer that are prevalent here. So this facility must serve the epidemiology in a way, must serve the distribution of cancers that we have in our country at present.
Finally, Dr. James, I want to ask you about the conversation that's going on social media constantly. Every day we're inundated with questions. We see this conversation going on. In the light of this, the fact that South Africans are open to have this discussion and feel that, in a way, the discussion is being ignored somewhat, do you think South Africa should maybe think about a referendum to decide on this matter?
Well, you know, a referendum is a really good way of measuring public opinion, and I think referenda should be used more in this country. Whether it should be used to deal with a particular issue of marijuana is not at all convincing to me. There are more compelling issues facing our country when it comes to education, and in this particular case, when it comes to education around drugs and how it is we deal with drugs and alcohol, that if you want to really test public opinion, why don't we start there? Focusing on that real issue. The question of marijuana is not, in my view, the most compelling issue that South Africa should be be having a conversation about and subjecting that to a referenda. But yes, I think there should be more discussion, as with anything else.
Thank you very much for joining us today and giving us the views of yourself and your party. That's the Federal Chairman of the Democratic Alliance here in South Africa, Dr. Wilmot James, joining us live from our parliamentary studios in Cape Town, giving us their points of view, that's of the Democratic Alliance, on marijuana, or the legalization thereof in South Africa.